Do you ever think about how things grow? How amazing foods and vegetables that we eat start from tiny little seeds, whether it be sprouts or something bigger like an avocado or an orange tree? Have you thought about bulbs and wonderful flowers that grow from things that look dead? Or maybe lettuce or celery or tiny little seeds, flowers and trees that come from acorns that are tiny, wonderful things that feed us and the birds. Everything starts really small, whether it's a tiny little kitten that you can hold in the palm of your hand, little tiny geese that follow along behind their mother that come from eggs, or tiny little babies. We all grow from something. What we grow into is a good question though. How do we grow up? And how do we grow with God? Let's talk about that today. The Word of God. Listen carefully. Unless a grain of wheat is buried in the ground, dead to the world, it is never any more than a grain of wheat. But if it is buried, it sprouts and reproduces itself many times over. In the same way, anyone who holds on to life just as it is destroys that life. But if you let it go, reckless in your love, you'll have it forever, real and eternal. If any of you wants to serve me, then follow me. Then you'll be where I am, ready to serve at a moment's notice. The Father will honor and reward anyone who serves me.
Hi there. Welcome to another virtual faith track. This week we're talking about growing with God. Have you noticed that outside right now, in the middle of March, the snow is melting, and in some places near buildings and where it's warm, there are tiny little green shoots poking up through the soil. Some of the snowdrops have already bloomed right here across the road from the church, and they're beautiful. Spring is definitely on its way. And as we're saying goodbye to winter and all of the fun things that we like to do in the winter, it's time to start thinking about the things that we love to do in the spring. One of the things that it's always so cool to see is what plants are growing and how things have survived the winter. And we start thinking about putting new things in the garden. We think about flowers that we want to put in the garden, but we also start thinking about vegetables and plants that we can eat. And maybe even at your house, they're growing inside already. And it's always amazing to watch seeds grow. Have you ever noticed that seeds are so cool? You can look at a plant tray that is full of soil that you know there are seeds planted in, and it looks like there's nothing there. It's just soil. And you could come back 5 minutes later, and all of a sudden there's a tiny little hint of green, and the seeds are beginning to poke through the soil. It's amazing to watch, and some plants are really cool as they grow, like beans. They almost spring out of the ground. And some tiny little seeds produce really, really big plants. Have you ever thought about acorns? Perhaps you've seen them on the ground in the fall. And from a tiny little acorn can grow a massive tree that homes can be built out of, that animals can live in, that can provide shade when we want to sit down in the hot summer months, and that helps us by turning our carbon dioxide into oxygen. It's amazing what can grow from a tiny little thing. We all grow from tiny little things. As you saw in the pictures just a minute ago, almost everything in the world starts out small. Even really big babies are much smaller than what they eventually grow into. I'm thinking whales or cows or elephants. Even though they're very big compared to a human baby or a kitten or a puppy, they're very small compared to what they will be. Have you ever wondered about how you grow inside? I don't mean your internal organs or those parts, but in your heart. Have you ever thought about how you grow in your heart and in your mind? Because sometimes our understanding of the world is really small too. And our understanding of each other, our understanding of who we are and how we think and behave, sometimes it has to grow too. It grows when people around us help us and teach us, things like our parents or our grandparents, our teachers, our friends. Our understanding of how to live in the world and how to treat each other grows by how we're treated. And sometimes, even as adults, we're still learning. We're still learning about ourselves. And we're learning about how we react when people say things to us or when we get hurt. And sometimes we learn our whole lives how to treat each other and how to deal with our feelings and our emotions. That's part of growing too. When the seed is in the ground and it's dark and it's beginning to struggle and grow, sometimes in our lives there are moments like that too where we feel a little bit in the dark. Maybe during all of the pandemic, during COVID, when you haven't been able to go to school or see your friends the way you wanted, maybe there have been times when your life has been dark. But if we think about that seed, what is the seed doing in the dark, in the ground? It's growing and it's learning and it's pushing and it's struggling to come up and out into the world. And sometimes we are the same. We're learning. We're learning right now about what's important and how much we appreciate our friends, and that school maybe wasn't the terrible place we thought it was when we've been learning at home for a long period of time. We're learning about how to be patient with each other. We're learning about how to keep thinking positively. We're learning how to deal with our negative emotions when we feel them, because that's okay too. We're learning so much right now. Sometimes when we learn a lot, it feels hard. It doesn't feel good. It's really uncomfortable to learn sometimes. And like that seed, we may feel like we're in the dark, struggling to grow. But you know what the secret is? God is with that little seed in the ground. God is with it and helping it to grow. It's created in such a way that it knows exactly what to do. It knows how to grow. In its DNA, in the same way that you have DNA, it has DNA, and its DNA tells it what to do. And our DNA tells us what to do too. And God is with us as much as God is with that little tiny seed, maybe even more. And so when we're not sure what to do, we can think about what we've been told. We can think about what we've been taught. We can think about how we would like to be treated. We can think about how God would like us to treat others. And we can go back to our DNA and say, what do I feel when I feel good? What makes me feel good? How can I make others feel good? What makes me feel bad? Do I want to make other people feel bad? Most of the time the answer is no. Sometimes when we're in an angry or grumpy frame of mind, yes, we want to make people feel bad, especially if it's our brothers or sisters when we're younger. Maybe they've stolen toys or worn your favorite clothes without telling you. Maybe you're just grumpy with them. Sometimes we do want to make people feel bad, but most of the time we're able to sort of remind ourselves that that's not the best way to treat each other. Sometimes it does happen though. And so we can go back to how we would like to be treated, and we can treat other people the same way. Because even when we're feeling grumpy and miserable, we probably don't want to be treated in a grumpy or miserable way. So we can say to ourselves, how would I like to be treated? And we can let God's love for us be in our hearts and remind us that when we're in the dark, God is with us, that we're not alone, that God is there, and we can take that love that God gives us and we can share it with each other so that we're all together in this, and we can learn and we can grow with God. And because we're growing with God, we can become better than we were. So I hope that you are able to look around you and see the wonderful spring world that is out there, and that if you're challenged, if you're struggling, you can remember that just as the seeds struggle to grow, you are too, and that every day that you take a step forward, it's something new that you've learned, and that as you're doing that, God is with you. I'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.
Well, have you had time to think about how everything grows? How flowers grow from dead, ugly bulbs? How fruit grows on a tree and nourishes us? How tiny little seeds become gigantic sunflowers that feed the birds and are great to eat? How a pineapple can grow from a plant that is super tiny, and how flowers brighten our world around us. Everything grows, even you, and cats and dogs grow from kittens and puppies into wonderful pets that we can have as companions. How are you going to grow today? How are you going to help others grow? What difference can you make in the world as you grow and live and learn with God? How can you grow, not just in size, but in heart? Think about this and share your love and your growth with others.